And so just clean that out.
Hey guys, Mike MBell556 here. I recently did a video review of the Savage A22 and 22 Magnum. It's a new design 22 Magnum semi-automatic rifle. And in the comment section of that video, the rifle that came up most in comparison to the Savage was this CZ512 semi-automatic and 22 Magnum. In today's video, we're going to do a comparison of this CZ512 in the context of having just looked at the Savage A22. And we'll look at some of the similarities and differences between these two firearms. This CZ can be found for just under $500, and the Savage, if you shop around, can be found just under $400. Now I have an old Berno 611 ZKM that uses a very heavy, large bolt to slow down the unlocking in this rimfire Magnum round. And we took a look at that in our Savage review video. With this rifle, I'm not sure exactly how they address it, and we'll look at the bolt and the springs. You either have to have increased spring pressure or increased bolt weight or a combination or some other design feature like the Savage design or the design that you see in the Kel-Tec PMR handgun. But you need something to delay that unlocking in a Magnum rimfire cartridge. So what I want to do in today's video is let's do an in-shop review of this rifle and compare its features to the features seen in the Savage A22. And then we're going to take this rifle out to Bullet Creek and we're going to do the same kind of reliability and accuracy testing. We use 12 different kinds of 22 Magnum ammunition for the Savage, and I want to run the same 12 rounds through this gun, and let's see if we can find any problems with reliability based on the different rounds. When we do our field testing, we'll use the same inexpensive Simmons 22 Magnum scope, so that'll be similar. Then we'll put this rifle on a sandbag and we'll shoot at 25 yards with 12 different rounds, and we'll look at both reliability and accuracy with this firearm and see how it compares to the Savage. So now let's take a close look at the components of this rifle. If we start at the front, this rifle does come with fixed sights. The front sight is hooded, and the rear sight is adjustable for both windage and elevation. The barrel on the CZ is a cold hammer forged barrel, and remember the Savage barrel was button rifled. The handguard is beechwood, and it feels very nice. It has a sling adapter on the front and on the buttstock. There's a takedown screw right here, and CZ makes a big deal about the fact that this rifle is designed to be field stripped with nothing more than a coin as the tool. So we'll go through that when we look at the internals. This has an aluminum alloy upper receiver, this part, and then this is a polymer lower receiver. It comes from the factory with this 5-round polymer magazine. We will be testing the 10-round polymer magazine as well. The trigger is one thing that right many people on the internet have complained about with this particular rifle. I measured the trigger in this gun, and it has about a 5-pound pull weight and just feel a little bit gritty. But I think that with time that might break in. So we'll do a side-by-side comparison of the triggers out in the field between this and the Savage. There's a bolt stop button right here. And just like with the Savage, there is no bolt release. Just had to pull the bolt back and let it fly. The rear buttstock is very nice. Now, even though it is good solid wood and feels good, you can see that in the back, as far as the fit and finish goes, between the wood and the receiver, there's a little bit of discrepancy there in the back. So let's go ahead and field strip this and look at the internals. Okay, we'll use a penny as our tool. And to field strip it, we're going to... It's a little bit tight. So at least for the first time, you can see where I bent this coin trying to unscrew this. So I bent my penny and it did not unscrew. So let's get a screwdriver first time around and break this loose, and then we'll try a penny on it. So I'm going to try my trusty Brownell's screwdriver set first, and let's see if we can't just break that loose. There you go. And I'll tighten it and break it loose again. So now that we've got it broken loose, we'll try again with the coin. So to field strip this, the first thing we're going to do is take this screw out. Comes completely out. And then the hand guard is going to slide forward. Lift it off. There is a pin that is holding things together. And we can use the screw to push the pin. Comes out very easily. We're going to pull things forward to the point where we can take the cocking knob and remove it out of this little cutout. Once we get to this point, then we can take the cocking knob out. The upper receiver slides off of the polymer lower receiver. Let's take a look at this. So once again, this is aluminum upper receiver and a hammer forged barrel compared to the steel upper receiver and the steel button rifled barrel on the Savage. Now the 512 comes in 22 long rifle and 22 Magnum, and I don't have a 22 long rifle to compare to, but I would assume that CZ just uses more metal in this bolt for the 22 Magnum to increase the bolt weight. Certainly the spring weight's going to be different, and I suspect the bolt weight will be different as well. And that's what they use to address the delayed blowback operation of the 22 Magnum rimfire. Now the bolt is resting on this little ledge. Let's see if you can see that. There's a little ledge right here. What we need to do is grab the bolt, pull it back, and lift it. And then easy, let it go forward. So the bolt has a dual op rod and recoil spring, which will certainly aid in the smoothness of this operation. The bolt is more evenly balanced when it recoils. See how much the bolt weighs. It looks very well machined. Remember, the bolt in the Savage was chrome plated. This is just machined steel. Now when it comes to addressing the problem with the 22 Magnum rimfire, CZ and Savage use a different design to address these issues. The classic way is with increased bolt weight. Well, Quartzen uses a combination of increased bolt weight and increased return spring pressure, and I think that's the technique that CZ uses. You can see the CZ bolt compared to the Savage bolt. There's a big difference in size. The CZ bolt weighs 9.3 ounces. And you can see there's a lot of extra metal in the rear of the bolt. There's actually a cutout for the hammer to be able to strike the firing pin, and have a lot of this extra metal on the sides, kind of reminiscent of a Uzi bolt that actually wraps around the front. And the Savage design is a much slimmer, smaller bolt that depends on this locking piece. That's going to prevent premature unlocking. And this bolt weighs only 5.3 ounces. So 4 ounces lighter, probably about 40% lighter. The other difference between the two systems is the recoil spring itself. The Savage uses a single recoil spring. It's on the side of the bolt, whereas the CZ uses a dual recoil spring that's balanced between the two sides of the bolt. So now let's talk about a comparison as far as the lower receiver goes. In the Savage, there was a polymer trigger package that went up inside the receiver. And with this CZ, this entire lower is made out of a fiberglass reinforced polymer. So all of this is polymer, but it certainly is very robust looking. It feels very strong and very thick polymer. The trigger, like we said, a lot of people feel like that this trigger leaves a lot to be desired, but we'll get out in the field and kind of do a side-by-side comparison. All in all, the housing certainly for the trigger seems to be a lot thicker and more sturdy, as it does function as the lower receiver as well. Now, interestingly, the top of this lower receiver is not reinforced with any kind of metal. It is polymer, and this is a bearing surface for the bolt. As I interpret this, the bolt is going to ride back and forth on this polymer. So I'm kind of surprised that there's no metal here. As far as a long-term wear, certainly you want to keep this surface lubricated, and we'll just have to watch that. I haven't heard of anybody complaining of this wearing in long-term use, so we'll have to see. Assembly is just going to be in reverse order. And the springs and rods go in the back. Pretty easy. Then we're going to slide the upper receiver onto the lower receiver. And in fact, when I look at how this goes together, there's some rails, but those rails are going to go underneath the polymer, in this little groove underneath the polymer, to hold the upper and lower receiver together. And the bolt itself is going to be rubbing on this polymer right here. Okay, so let's just put this together. We'll go to the point where we can get the charging handle back in. The charging handle has a groove cut in it, and that groove is going to have to go in the right direction. Get the charging handle lined up, and then just slide the upper and lower receiver together. Then we'll use our pin that fixes the upper and lower receiver together. Then we'll put our hand guard back on. Just go from the front, slide it in position, and see where it'll just cover up and keep that pin from falling out. And then the one screw that holds everything together is our takedown screw that now hopefully we can place on and take off in the future with just a slightly bent penny. Okay, we've got everything reassembled. Another little oddity that some people complain about is you cannot charge the bolt all the way back with the safety in the safe position. You have to go ahead and take the safety and put it on the off position before you can charge the gun. I don't think that's particularly a major problem. You should be nowhere near the trigger when you charge the gun, and then you can immediately place it on safe. All right, we've got our scope on the CZ now. We'll be taking it out to Bullet Creek with the sandbags for accuracy testing at 25 yards. We'll also be checking these 10-round polymer magazines for the CZ. And we'll take out our Savage A22 so we can kind of do a side-by-side comparison. As I did with this Savage A22, what I want to do in our field evaluation is show you every single pull of the trigger with this rifle. so that if we have any issues as far as function, you'll be able to see what those issues are. We're going to take 12 different types of ammunition out, and we'll see if this rifle will digest all 12 of those. Remember, with the Savage, we had a problem with the Dynapoints. They were underpowered and they would not cycle this firearm. So we'll be going from 30 grain to 50 grain bullets and several rounds in between to see how the CZ stacks up. I hope you found the information useful and interesting. If you have any questions or comments, please post those and I'll try to respond to those in a timely fashion. Feel free to spend some time looking at our other videos on our video channel. And stay tuned as we field test the CZ and compare it to the results that we saw with the Savage A22. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.